There we are. Good morning, and it is 8:40, and we are 20 minutes. No, not that much. We are 10 minutes late on joining you this morning, and I'm sorry about that. Sometimes on a Monday morning, I always remember once when I was doing some consultation for British Airways, and the one chap, when trying to explain the delays that occur, he said, sometimes the pilot turns up and he gets into the cockpit and everything is fine, and then he pushes a button to start the engines and they won't start. They just refuse stubbornly to start, and nobody quite knows why. And eventually, the engineers tinker with them, give them a swift kick, and away they go. It's a bit like the technology here is. Some mornings it's fine, and other mornings it's not. And it's obviously had a very good weekend with the rest of you on the beaches and in all the sunspots, because it's obviously got a headache this morning, or at least it's a bit lazy. The way that I feel, I must confess, everybody does. But there we go. We are fine. We're ready to face the day, and it is, for those of you who have forgotten, the Monday, the 25th of July in the year 2022. And what a year it has been, and it gets no better. Yeah, there have been good things. We've had a heat wave. Of course, the trouble is that then it gets too hot. But nonetheless, it hasn't been a bad summer as far as weather is concerned. There have been one or two interesting things that happen in the sporting world. A lot of happens in world politics, and for that matter, a world combat, because we all have forgotten that the war in Ukraine continues, that there is human suffering and misery from this conflict, which is now in its 6th month, and which many people would prefer would be forgotten. It was supposed to be a short, sharp shock, either to the Russians or by the Russians, and instead it's turned into a war of attrition, and nobody really knows which side they should take, because there is a lot of scurrying for which side gets the benefits. It's the way it is. It's the way of the world, isn't it? Now, I didn't want to start off your day with a lot of nonsense. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go immediate to our soother, the bit that makes us feel better. Lovely Southover Park, where if you really want to get away from it all, that's the place to go. Nice and calming. And get away from it all, we really should want to, because the news headlines, as usual, the front pages are full of gloom and doom. And we have to see whether we can get over the dreaded password formula and go to the news headlines, or at least the newspaper headlines. And the Metro, the London paper, kicks it off with the NHS is on its knees, and it reports that a report by MPs says that there are 12,000 hospital doctor posts and more than 50,000 nurse and midwife jobs going in the NHS. Now, the first reaction, I suppose, from anybody is, it's all because we can't get the labour because of the European Union. It's much more than that. It's years of mismanagement, and the NHS, albeit a sacred cow, it needs to be punctured from time to time because it's a bureaucratic monster, and it cannot get its act together properly. That's where the expertise and the money should be spent at the moment, and the doctors and nurses will follow in due course. But again, one of the things that I have been thumping the desk about, thump, is that we really have become a nation, a work-shy nation. We really don't want to go to work. And this is nowhere more pronounced than the public sector, where public sector workers are not going back to work, whether it be Whitehall or whether it be for parish councils, are not going back to work. Or at least the favoured let us work 4 days from home and 1 day in the office. And the 1 day in the office turns out to be the day that they take off. So in many ways, the crisis that we're facing, while it may seem as if it is because of Brexit and so on, is well, some of that may be true, but don't turn around and think that it's as simple as arguing that Brexit is the fault. I've fought bureaucracy. The fact is, the local service has now more administrators by the look of things, and I say by the look of things because I don't have any official figures. I haven't managed to get hold of Dr. Heath and say, come on, show me the figures. But it does seem much more difficult now to get hold of a doctor or to get hold of frontline treatment because there are now a whole army, a whole phalanx of nurses and receptionists and so on, all of whom are authorized to say whether you're dying or not. And that seems to me to be wrong. But also, it does build a bureaucratic platform. It does actually add to the workforce those people who aren't medical and take away, as indeed the figures seem to show, a considerable number of people who are qualified to work for us. The Mirror, the worst NHS staff crisis ever, it says. The Eye, it starts to break with that theme. The Tory race to be the next Prime Minister gets toxic. And basically, over the weekend, and I'm grateful in some ways that at long last, following our report from New York last Friday, where Melissa Conte said, the Americans don't understand why we're not more concerned with China. At long last, that's burst onto the scene. And the two candidates, while I don't approve of the mudslinging, are debating an issue that I think is absolutely wrong. One is that we ignore the Chinese at our peril. Two is that, excuse me, a little touch of hay fever, I feel, just because of the heat. Don't think I've got a cold, although my throat has been just a little sensitive over the weekend, but it seems to be all right this morning. So we won't get too excited about whether we're okay or not. Rishi and Liz have started to mudsling over China. Liz says Rishi has been far too generous in allowing the Chinese to get influence and to buy into British business and technology. He says, on the other hand, that she has been far too lax in permitting Chinese money to go into endowments and research and all sorts of other goodies into British universities, which are now feeling the harsh reality of, if you get the money, somebody's got to pay somewhere, and that goes from Chinese influence. We should be concerned about China. It is a big, sprawling country. In many ways, it's amazing what it's done in terms of manufacture. But because its labor is cheap, it is able to turn up very, very cost-conscious items to the general public. And it is right and proper that we should keep an eye on this sleeping giant. So at least the candidates have got that right. And the Daily Mail carries on with that. Tough on China, Mr. Sunak? Pull the other one. The Mail takes the view that while Rishi has been talking tough on Chinese influence and how we should deal with them as partners, is what Rishi Sunak is saying, and that is that the Chinese, we need to curb our trade trade negotiations and trade organizations with China much better. And he then has slammed Liz Truss for allowing the Chinese to get a lot of influence in our decision-making area of universities. The Daily Telegraph: Sunak takes aim at Truss over China's influence in universities. So the mudslinging has changed its tune, and it's China that's going to be the main talking point. The important thing is that to understand that China is becoming a global influence. It's got its own problems, as big organizations, big federations do. But nonetheless, if you start to look at Beijing, you can see that it's fighting for influence all the time and gets involved in a whole host of things. And that basically what the candidates are saying is, as a country, we've permitted them to do this, and that enough is enough. We've got to actually curb our ability to let China in and get a really strong influence on the Britain of today. The Times: Channel tourists face long queues all summer. And the Times is reporting that Dover and Folkestone will suffer the same sort of problems throughout the rest of the summer that it found in this last couple of days, where we've had complete and utter chaos in the ports. Mind you, we've also had complete and utter chaos in the flight sector. Right, so where are we? Just a little chat to see what's going on. Now, the bane of my life and that of many others is that we all want to get out of the country and enjoy. Why we want to enjoy sun in Spain when you can get sun here? I presume that the sangria is still cheaper in Spain. I haven't been there for a little while. So if you're prepared to put up with chaos in terms of our transportation system, particularly at the ports, be our guest and try and go abroad. It's funny, that seems to be the only movement at the moment. The trains are only half full. The buses are still quite empty. The streets are quite empty. The old rush that we experienced prior to lockdown isn't there. Does that mean that the country has lost the zest for life, as it were, that isn't prepared to actually go to bat for some of these things that are highlighted by the media? Yeah, it's very difficult to really say why we have got this national lethargy. Something to do with Brexit, I suppose. But even more so is that we don't really want to work, because we've come to the realization of how nice it would be to have any length of time in which we can work and take our holidays whenever we want. So we are a country at war with its own lethargy. Let's put it that way. Well, the star, my dear old Daily Star, it just keeps pointing out that we're going to have more heat waves. So, however you fare this last one, be prepared for another one. Its headline is heat wave aftershave. I'm not sure whether that was just a note to one of my colleagues to pick up some perfume for his wife, or whether, in fact, it is a legitimate confrontation. But we're taking it as face value because the players from now until the end of the day certainly have started to relent a little towards the royal family. And much of turns to is just as well we got a good one. Right, so that's the newspaper front pages. It is 8:58 on the 25th of July in the year 2022. Not propitious by any means, but there we go. It's the way life is, I'm afraid. We expect one thing and we get another. Okay, from the back pages, the women's lady footballers meet Sweden now in the semi-finals after beating I think it was Spain 2-1. We're getting back into the medals with the middle distance running, which was always our great strength in the past. We were always good at middle distance running, and we've started to get that back. It's going to be 24 today, 23, 24. But there is they call it a light breeze, but it's fairly stiff, and it took my hat this morning a couple of times. I have to super glue it down when we get to this situation. So let's take a look at what we may have in store for you from the archives, and it's sometimes difficult to say what we should be looking at and what we shouldn't. Anyway, we're having a wee bit of problem finding stuff at the moment. So I think what we do is, because most of you, or many of you, have never heard of Mirador before, and you're starting to to now slide in, and it's the day-to-day life of the abbeys and the mansions and the stately home people, what sort of life they led prior to lockdown. And I'm sure that they actually would die 1,000 deaths if they thought for one moment that the country was going from to the dogs when they made such a contribution with their own. That generation made a contribution with its own life. All right, come on, mucky one. Let's. What have we got here? Let's go through the Rocky Mountains, shall we? That's a pleasant sort of way to kick off.
Hard to be filming in the car here because the road is rough, patched up all over the place, and hard to keep the camera steady. Now that is a rugged mountain range.
Then I see Bobby behind big trucks. That's on it.
so many motorhomes, fifth wheels, trailers, campers, more than in other years for a long time. Even now, like I said, all around. Many of them are rental. Actually, this time we've seen a motorhome, a trailer, and a camper truck, but there's so many of them out on the road.
Well, that's quite a spectacular run through the Canadian Rockies, and you may well say, well, why are you showing that particular piece of video? Surely it has nothing to do with Lewis. Well, it has plenty to do with Lewis, because as we say on this program all the time, we are local but not parochial. Where do our people get to? Where do they come from? Well, it's difficult to know, but as far as the Trans-Canada Highway is concerned, is first of all, we originally got that clip because a Louisian, Rupert Lloyd Thomas, who is going to organize again this year the Furl Hill Climb, which is spectacular. All the old cars charging up. I think it's called Rainbow. It'll come back to me in a moment. But anyway, magnificent display of old cars and transportation. And Rupert is responsible for restoring it. It was a 1930s phenomenon, which then fell foul of new advents, new tires that needed to be old cars, and all sorts of things. But it's now flourishing. Anyway, Rupert emigrated a little while ago to Canada. He's back now, by the way. But he went and he lived in Sydney, I think it was. Sydney. No, he went to live in Sydney, in British Columbia. He was living in Toronto in the meantime. And he decided that he and his wife would pack up, get into their smart car, and drive the 5,000 miles from Ontario to British Columbia in his smart car, which he did. Pretty daring things to do when you think about it. But I'm told that, well, one thing I know for sure, that he was hauled over by the police because there'd been a report of somebody driving a golf buggy along the highway. so much for that sort of international cooperation. That he then, once he got to BC, reported on a number of things for us, but the smart car got him there, did its 5,000 mile stint, and a very brave effort it did. And he started to plan that, apart from being a Louisian, he started to plan that in the Brewers Arms before he actually set out to do what I think, and many others would think, is quite daring. Secondly, I helped build that Trans-Canada Highway when I was a young man in 1958, I think it was, 58, 59. It would have been 59. I got a summer job as a student, helping to build the last strip of highway through the very, very ferocious mountains. And that was a session that I will never, ever forget. It was the making of me as a man from a boy. One amusing story is that I've still got very much my English haircut, occasionally wore my English blazer. And one of the grizzled old workers on these projects, on occasion, nudged his partner and said, "You sure can tell that young fella's English, can't you?" And he said, "Yeah. Why do you say that?" He said, "Because he eats his pie with a spoon." That was a differentiation of never mind ethnicity. Get on with the practical things. He eats his pie with a spoon. He must be different. He must be from England. It's jolly good stuff. Really is very good stuff. Let's sweet and tale.
Well done, the energy companies. They're full of bright ideas to help their customers. Now they've made power so expensive that for an average house such as this, you can't afford to heat it. So you don't need appliances such as this. But that means you also don't need a fridge, because you can keep your groceries cool and fresh without it. The house is cold enough. Well done, chaps.
Well, yes, we're back, and I'll just take a very quick look around to see what's going on. In Lewis, we've got some exciting things that are coming up. It's not very far now before the raft race, which takes place on Sunday, the 31st of July. And it is always a great deal of fun if the weather is good. The banks of the River Ouse, down by Tesco, down by the bridge, are always jam-packed with people who take picnics and go out to, you can buy hamburgers and all that sort of stuff. And we hope to bring that to you live on the day, on the 31st, which isn't very far away now. In fact, it's the 25th. And the 31st is racing towards us. And the raft race is done for charity. It's raised a terrific amount of money. And we are very pleased that we can actually help to boost it. We have actually contacted the organisers of the raft race and said, look, come in and tell people about it. Don't take our word for it. Come and give it straight for the shoulder. And they haven't actually, well, they did respond and sort of, hummed and hawed. The trouble with organising things like this is when it's for charity and it's not professionals, is their means of allocating their time, because they are all working, or even if it's stay-at-home working, they're working. And they find it difficult to pop by a studio or to take time during the day to talk to those people who may not know much about the raft race, may not know much about its history. But it's a great day of fun, and I think if you're there by about noon, I forget when it kicks off, because it depends on the tide as well. The Ouse is a tidal river, so do take it upon yourself this coming Sunday to actually go down to the banks of the Ouse, right by Tesco there, and avail yourself. I don't think you charge for parking on a Sunday. It'd be a travesty if you were. And join in the fun. And it's a great deal of fun. It's also good for charity. The various organizations build their own rafts, and then what they do is they try to demast their opposition before the thing is getting underway. I am not 100% sure, and this is why it would be nice if we got somebody from the raft race in. I am not sure whether, in fact, it is going to be, or they have, because we didn't have one last year because of lockdown. Are we going to have the nice feeling of bonhomie and so on, but within the context of a regatta, because there are other things up until the last time that this took place 2 years ago. There are other things such as kayak racing and canoe displays and little chuggy boats. A nice regatta atmosphere. And if it is, that really makes a great day, because then there are other things to do than just gaze at the river. And of course, they set off for New Haven, and so eventually they disappear from sight, helped a little bit by the tide. So that's this Sunday, the 31st, and we hope that we are going to bring this to you live. It depends on one or two bits and pieces that we are still chasing after, chasing like mad, not getting anywhere. But nonetheless, it's full of the sort of fun that we think that life should be about. And just despite the fact that we bring you dire news and doom and gloom first thing on a Monday morning, is we still like to think that we can raise a chuckle, and that we do things that are half decent. Now, talking about chuckles, very sadly, I have to report that Suzanne Mucho, who actually keeps us all amused with things that are going on in the United States and the weather, is not feeling at all well. We are going to send her the link in case she's able to join us, but she sent a text saying, "I'm terribly sorry that I'm not at all well, and that she can't join us this morning." And God bless her, she gets up at 4:00 in the morning to do this broadcast with us. So I'm afraid that you've got a rather old sourpuss here for a little while, and we will try very hard to give you things that we could worry about is one way or another. And I think what we have been doing is showing. Right, here's a favourite. Because we know it's a favourite because you told us so. It's a very short thing, but here it is: ghostly effort.
Mickleham Priory is near Lewes. It was a former Augustine 13th century monastery. The main building has been preserved, but the church was pulled down by Henry VIII. The monks there had a reputation for naughtiness. Ghostly figures of monks are often seen walking the grounds. Stories of orgies and chasing the girls in the local village were legion. The priory became a private residence. One of its occupants was Sir Thomas Sackville, who lived there in the late 1500s. He was, by all accounts, a nasty bit of work. His ghost is said to bully the other spirits, as well as unsuspecting mortals. It must be true, I felt him kick me.
Well, not only did I hang on, let's come back here. Not only did I feel the ghost kick me, but um, the ghost has a special reputation for naughtiness, because Sackville was not averse to casting a longing eye onto a wench or two working in his establishment. So bottom tweaking became something of a pastime, a sport. And I swear that those people who have reported feeling a ghost tweak their bottom very real, because I felt one tweak mine. I was very flattered. But certainly it seemed to me that there was something there, and that we needed to actually confirm the ghost's presence. But that the Sackville ghost, go out and try it yourself. The Mickleham Priory. It's in the village of Upper Dicker, and its history is really was very naughty. The monks, obviously, that went there in the early days weren't there because of their reverence for Christianity and God. They had a pub near the entrance to the premises, where they could go and hunker down, and nobody could find them. They were regularly investigated by the Catholic Church's hierarchy, because reports of banquets and living a high life were frequent, and the church deemed it necessary to try and get them back to proper health. They were a pretty naughty lot. And I always think of the Carmen of Urana. It's a piece of music, I think, written in the 1930s, but written from old drinking songs, from the days when monks very merrily sat around a table and hoisted beer and told naughty stories. But I'm also told that some of those songs were by novice priests taking the P out of the Vatican, out of the head of the church in Rome, and that they were very sort of slightly naughty ditties, sort of the way that perhaps we would do, is writing something about the boss if we don't like him, and if we want to get back at him. So the Carmen of Urana, if you can get a copy, is well worthwhile listening to, and mighty drinking songs of the monks. Now, I am just looking for something to show you and enjoy with you, because it's still a very, very how should we say, still very hot. And it's very difficult to actually get cracking on days like this. You really would prefer to go to sleep, and I feel the same. It's trying to get enthused on a morning like this, and nobody else is. Why should I? And I suppose, really, in many ways, I'm trying very hard to nothing's opening. Oh well. We could try that, I suppose. No, isn't that strange? Well, it's not strange at all. It's me. We What's the time, by the way? Oh, 9:26. Goodness gracious me, we've been on for an hour. But when things won't work, they won't bloody well work. And try hard to find things that are readily available when you're half. No, it's not going to open. I don't know why. And I'm not the technical. I'm not the technical man. You understand? So. What we can find, I'm not absolutely sure. Is only the good die young, and I would like to die at the moment because I'm not getting anywhere in terms of finding anything to play for you. I mean, the news is straightforward enough, and it is time for us to. Well, I tell you what. Let us. The one thing that I like about being able to do when we're not busy, as it were, is to tell you a little bit about Lewis. Now, there are one or two things that aren't right about this because it was done a couple of years ago. But let's like Lewis and take a breather. Well, where are we? Can't find my way back. I think we've got ourselves into a bit of a knot here. So do forgive us while we figure out what's wrong. That should go. That should disappear. Well, let's hope that we're not going to. I know what we're doing. I know what we're doing wrong. There we go. Now we should be back. There we go. Yeah. All right. It's 9:34. This has been Break an Egg, and now we're going to take a 5-minute break just to see whether we can sort out one or two things for affairs from the heart. And we won't be long. I don't think we'll be long anyway. Toodle pip for 5 minutes or so, he said. There we go.